So continuing from where I left off. It is often said that a man is known by his company, and if an ordinary man associates with devotees, he will certainly develop his dormant Krishna consciousness. The understanding of Krishna consciousness is innate, natural. I want to get this up a little higher, if I may. To the side. Yeah. How's it coming over on the camera, okay? It's all right? Good. The understanding of Krishna consciousness is innate in every living entity. And it is already developed to some extent when the living entity takes a human body. It is said in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila 22, 107, Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kabu Naya Shravanadi Shuddha Chitte Karaye Udaya, which means pure love for Krishna is eternally established in the hearts of living entities. It is not something to be gained from another source. When the heart is purified by hearing and chanting, the living entity naturally awakens. Remember I spoke about the dirty window? And as you clean the window, you can see out. So similarly, as a person chants the holy name, this dirty covering over the soul, it gets cleaned away slowly but surely. And then finally, this, as the way Prabhupada puts it, the living entity naturally awakens. It's like when the window is dirty, thick, and then somebody is cleaning it, you don't know that it's light out there. It looks dark. But as it gets cleaner and cleaner, you suddenly wake up, hey, there's a light out there. I thought it was dark. It's the same thing. It's the same idea. So, since Krishna consciousness is inherent in every living entity, everyone should be given a chance to hear about Krishna. Simply by hearing and chanting Shravanam Kirtanam, that's from the Srimad Bhagavatam 7.5.23, one's heart is directly purified, and one's original Krishna consciousness is immediately awakened. This is exactly what I've been saying, but it's nice to hear it from Prabhupada, because it means that what I'm speaking is authoritative and based upon Shastra and based upon Guru. So that should give you confidence that what I'm saying is right out of the book. And here Prabhupada is saying exactly the same. One's original Krishna consciousness is immediately awakened, and that's where I learned it from. Krishna consciousness is not artificially imposed upon the heart, doesn't come from outside, it is already there. When one chants the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the heart is cleansed of all mundane contamination. The holy name is, again, it's a nice image to keep in mind. It's like some liquefied soap. And as you keep rubbing it, the dirt keeps coming down. You see all that dirty water coming down. And that is our impurities. That's our lust. That's our greed. That's our envy. That's our anger. That's our gluttony. That's our pride. That's our sloth, our laziness, all those wonderful qualities that make life so memorable. Memorable indeed. Not the way we want to remember either. So those qualities gradually are dissipated, they're distilled, and they disappear. And as I said, once the window is clean, you say, well, what do you know? It's light out there. What do you know? Krishna is real. So it says here, everyone should be given a chance. And that's Krishna, Srila Prabhupada's wonderful compassion. one's heart is directly purified and one's original Krishna consciousness is immediately awakened. Krishna consciousness, I already said that. When one chants the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the heart is cleansed of all mundane contamination. In the first stanza of the Sri Shikshastika, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Cheto Darbana Marjanam Bhava Mahadavagni Nivapanam Shreya Kerava Chandrika Vitaranam Vidyavadu Jivanam Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam Pratipadam Purnam Ritsvadanam Sarvatma Snapanam Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. You'll find that in the Antya-lila 2012, this which I just read, which means all glories to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life, of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction of humanity, or for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. This is very important, and I think I gave emphasis to this. The nectar for which we are always anxious. We're always eager to get that bliss, that joy, that ecstasy, but we're always looking for it in the wrong place. But what Prabhupada is saying, and what Lord Chaitanya here is saying, that if we keep chanting this holy name, and we chant it sincerely, we chant it deeply, we chant it lovingly, we chant it dependently, oh my Lord, please help me. Please help me to love you purely. Help me to inspire others to love you purely. Please keep me engaged in your loving devotional service, whatever it may be, but don't let me get out of your service, because it's through service that I develop love. It is through service that I gain your grace. And I so much need your grace because I am so fallen and so wretched and worthless. But by your mercy, all that can be removed and withdrawn and destroyed, because you are the infinite, one, transcendental, omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent Lord of the universe. You can do anything. And your greatest quality, O Lord, is your mercy. So please give me a drop of that mercy to clean me, to clear me, to cleanse me, to purify me of all the filth that is lying dormant in me. Get it out of me so that I can appreciate and taste and swim in the nectar of your holy presence. Not only is the chanter of the Maha Mantra purified, but the heart of anyone who happens to hear the transcendental vibration of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. That person is also cleansed. Even the souls embodied in lower animals, insects, trees, and other species of life become purified and prepared to become fully Krishna conscious simply by hearing the transcendental vibration. Isn't that amazing? You can go into the woods, scream out. This is what Haridas Thakur used to do. He'd go into a cave or he'd be someplace in the woods. He wouldn't chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. He wasn't chanting that way. Of course, with people, he wouldn't, around him, he doesn't want to disturb or upset, because they're chanting and they want to hear the mantra themselves. But when he would be out alone, and there were, the snakes and the bugs and the mosquitoes and the beetles and the deer, he'd shout out, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Yeah, he would be praying. That's his prayer. You trees, be enlightened, be liberated. get love of God. You Beatles, get love of God. Not the four Beatles, the Beatles on the ground. So you, I'm sorry. Anyway, so you beetles, you insects, you ladybugs, whatever, please hear me. Turtles, come on, hear it. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So they get scared but they're hearing the holy name. And what happened was that, sure, they get the path of liberation starts right then and there. The name is so powerful. And Haridas Thakur was so sensitive and so knowing and so knowledgeable. Even Lord Chaitanya called him the incarnation of not the holy name, but the incarnation avatar of the holy name. He knew all the ins and outs, every secret about the holy name. Lord Chaitanya would ask him about this and that and this and that. Of course, he knew the answers, but he wanted to hear it from Haridas so that we would know the glory, the greatness, the wonder, the amazement of Haridas Thakur. And when Haridas Thakur was ready to leave his body, water someplace here? Did somebody get the water? Thank you. Thank you. When Haridas Thakur was ready to leave his body, what an amazing departure it was. I mean, when I think about it, I just get chills. One day, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he came to Haridas. He says, Haridas, you don't look very well. Haridas Thakur, he said, I'm okay. He says, I have one problem. He says, what is that problem? He says, I'm not able to finish my rounds. Rounds, I don't know how many, 195 rounds he was chanting? 192, sorry about that. We don't want to give him too much credit now, you know. 3 rounds after all. So, anyway, so it is funny. So anyway, Haridas Thakur, he says, yes, I can't chant all my rounds. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he said, well, you don't have to chant. You can forget the rounds. You already chanted enough. You're already a liberated soul. You know where you're going. I know where you're going. He says, yes, but the holy name is so important to me. He said, don't worry about it. And he said, but there's another problem. He said, what is the other problem? He said, I know for sure very soon you're going to leave, you're going to wind up your pastimes and leave this world. He said, if you leave this world and I'm here, it would break my heart. I could not bear this. It would be too difficult. Lord Chaitanya said, so I would appreciate you offering me one favor. And what is that? He said, I don't want to be here when you leave. I want to leave first. And I want to leave in the following way. He said, I would appreciate if tomorrow you would come to the cave here and then I will leave my body at that time. So Lord Chaitanya said, well, you know what you want to do. You're fully realized, so I will come. So the next day, Lord Chaitanya came with many, many devotees. And Haridas Thakur, he was sitting down. And Lord Chaitanya was also sitting opposite him. So Haridas Thakur says, please allow me to place your feet on my heart. And let me look with my 2 eyes, like 2 bumblebees looking at the 2 lotus-like eyes that you have. So he took the 2 feet of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and he held them on his heart. And a kirtan began. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, like we have a spirited kirtan, really rollicking, rousing, heartfelt. And it was going on. And then Haridas Thakur, he was listening and he was looking with his 2 bumblebee eyes fastened to the face of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he was just looking and looking and looking and looking and looking, and he left. And then the kirtan, and his head dropped, we know that he's left. The kirtan became even more incredibly intense, rousing. I'm running out of adjectives, excuse me, but then Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he picked the body of Haridas Thakur. Remember, Lord Chaitanya, it is said he was about 7 feet tall. So, and Haridas Thakur is not so tall, not anywhere near that. So he picked him up and he got dancing with the name, and the kirtan is going on. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. And Lord Chaitanya was showing how much he loved this Haridas Thakur, how important a person he was, because he knew everything about the holy name, and that we should really honor him and glorify him and worship him for the knowledge that he gave out, which is in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, because Lord Chaitanya questioned him about many aspects. How persons become liberated just by hearing the holy name. So then Lord Chaitanya took the body and he went galloping off into the ocean. And went into the ocean and bathed the body of Haridas Thakur and declared that this part of the ocean will henceforth become a pilgrimage spot of the greatest degree, the greatest order. Whoever comes here and bathes in this area, right here where Haridas Thakur is being washed and bathed, he is sure to go back home, back to Godhead. That was the thing. So then, they after they came out of the water, they dug a grave for him. And it was dug, and then Haridas' body was then placed in it, and then it was buried, and then they put some type of a fence around it. And I have never been to Jagannath Puri. Has anybody seen that particular? Have you seen that area? Yeah. Does it? What is it? Have they built like a temple around it now? Or?
It's a big temple.
The temple now.
I go to the temple all the time for Mongol Arti in the morning.
Loud.
I used to go to the temple for Mongol Arti in the morning time, and I became friends with the curator of the temple, and we took to meet the japa, Mala, the Harida, and we put it on my head.
Okay. So what?
So it's like...
Now, is there a fence around that area where he's buried?
It's in the samadhi.
Okay.
It's in the samadhi.
It's a covered samadhi.
It's covered
Yeah.
samadhi.
Okay.
It's the temple that's covered in that samadhi.
All right.
And then the samadhi of them is in the inside.
Yeah.
You can go up to the fence. You can go up inside of the temple to the fence, and they have kirtan going on all the time.
Okay. Okay, that's enough. All right, Prabhuji. We won't run a whole lecture on this now, but I appreciate what you have to say. And all I wanted to know was there was a fence around it. Okay. So, thank you. I want to continue this because I have to try to finish all the material that is here. Yes, this was explained by Thakur Haridas when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu inquired from him how living entities lower than human beings can be delivered from material bondage. That's why Haridas Thakur was screaming out the mantra. He wanted everybody, no one should be left out of this liberation. Liberation to the eternal world, of course. Sometimes when the word liberated, Prabhupada sometimes uses it in a lower sense, but when he does, he means there are 5 kinds of liberation. So the first kind is sayuja. That is merging into the infinite light. Infinite, that is where a person deludes himself into the belief that he's God. Okay? So that is a form of liberation, but it's not really liberation. Because you enter the light, you stay there in that light for a period of time, and it's a very peaceful experience. But since Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said the living entity has been made for service, not for sleeping, not for resting, or just being in the light. As I said, Jivera Swarupa Hoy Krishnera Nitya Das, the constitutional position of the living entity, is to be an eternal servant. Servant means service. No service in the light. It's like going out on a raft, in the ocean, and you just lie there. Well, after 2-3 hours, what do you want to do? After you get toasted, from the sun, well, you want to get out. So you paddle back, go back to the shore, and you start running around and wanting to do things. So, as it's mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam, those who think they are liberated in this world, but who are devoid of devotional service to you, are of impure intelligence. although they accept severe austerities and penances, I'm blank now, although they accept severe austerities and penances, and well, that's as much as I can remember at the moment. If anybody remembers the rest of it, please fill me in. But although they accept severe austerities and penances, and the main point is that ultimately they must come back to the spirit, to the material world. That's the key. That's the ending of that verse. They have to come back. Why does they have to come back? Because the living entity is meant for service. And so they generally get involved in humanitarian work and altruistic type of work, philanthropic work, hospitals, all those kind of things. To develop personalism. When you're a humanitarian, you're doing something for humankind, or if you're doing any type of humanitarian or philanthropic work. So simply by hearing the transcendental vibration, this was explained by Thakur Haridas Thakur when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu inquired from him how living entities lower than human beings can be delivered from material bondage. Haridas Thakur said that the chanting of the holy names is most important, is so powerful that even if one chants in the remotest parts of the jungle, the trees and animals will advance in Krishna consciousness simply by what? Hearing the vibration. This was actually proved by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. When he passed through the forest of, what was the name of that forest? Jarakanda, yes. At that time, the tigers, snakes, deer, and all other animals abandoned their natural animosity and began chanting and dancing in Sankirtan. And just think about it. Lord Chaitanya had a servant with him. He was advanced, but not so advanced. Lord Chaitanya is walking through, and there's a tiger lying on the ground. Lord Chaitanya takes his foot and rubs it on the belly of the tiger. The tiger gets up and looks at him. Lord Chaitanya says, chant, chant, chant the holy name. Tiger gets up. He's trying to chant the holy name. He doesn't have good pronunciation. So he's trying to, and he gets up on his hind legs. And then there's some deer there. So the deer, they're also, the best they can do. And then the lion, he's starting to chant. So then the deer and the tiger, they start rubbing noses. It's mentioned in the Chaitanya Chart, they start kissing. Can you imagine a deer? They lost their natural animosity, instinctual. Not natural. Natural, we actually all love one another in our natural, true state. But when we get covered over, that's when we start hating because of the modes of nature take control. So anyway, the deer, they were kissing with the tigers, and then so it was an amazing sight. And what was his name? Balabhadra Bhattacharya, I think his name was. He was looking at this. He was so amazed, and he was scared too. He didn't know if the tigers were going to come out of the trance, and if they were hungry, well, they're not going to touch Chaitanya Mahaprabhu because he's totally insulated. But what about Balabhadra Bhattacharya? So he was scared. Anyway, finally the tigers stopped, and Lord Chaitanya moved on, and he moved to another area, and there was a bunch of wild elephants there, and they were trumpeting like, that kind of noise. And so Lord Chaitanya he took some water and he was splashing at them. Chant, chant. He was ordering them all to chant. So they're all trying their best to chant this holy name. And he says, yes, chant, chant. And then he moved on. So Balabhadra, he was just so amazed that the Lord had so much spiritual love. He overwhelmed everyone and everything with such love. And that's the only thing that's going to solve all the world's problems, that the more filled with pure love that our hearts have, and we express it through our words, through our deeds, the more we can express that, then the more we're going to find that people become very responsive to that, and they find that they want to know us, they want to be friends with us, they want to accommodate us, they feel obliged to us. And when people have that feeling, that loving feeling, that's what all of us felt about Prabhupada. All we wanted to do is do things for him. We wanted to please him. So we devotees went out and, they distributed so many books. And when Srila Prabhupada would get the message, how many books were distributed, and he would hear, thousands of books were being distributed, then the result was he would be so joyful, big smile on his face. He says he was even amazed. But of course, for Krishna, nothing is impossible. And he was Krishna was empowering all these devotees to do that, not only because Krishna himself was pleased, but Prabhupada was pleased. And Krishna wanted to please Srila Prabhupada, because Srila Prabhupada was so dedicated and devoted and centered on giving pleasure to Krishna. It's reciprocal, okay? So I mentioned, of course, we cannot imitate the activities of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but we should follow in his footsteps. That means the practices should be performed. He chanted, we should chant. And he danced, we should dance. He encouraged people to read the Bhagavatam, and we should do that. We are not powerful enough to enchant the lower animals, such as tigers, snakes, cats, and dogs, or entice them to dance. But by chanting the holy names of the Lord, we can actually convert many. That's my point that I just made. We can actually convert many people throughout the world to Krishna consciousness, because we become purified. Contributing or distributing the holy name of the Lord is a sublime example of contributing or giving charity. This is the highest charity, by the way. There is no greater charity, because when we give money to the Red Cross, all these things are okay. We give goodwill and so forth. And it helps people, but on a superficial level, because after all, you can give people food, but then they get hungry again. What can you give them so that they will never be hungry? If you give them Krishna, and they take shelter of Krishna, Krishna will take care of them. And if Krishna takes care of them, they will always have enough to eat. But if you just give them food, well, that's okay temporarily. But if we don't give them something substantial, and that was what Srila Prabhupada was often complaining about, that we think it's such a big deal to give so much charity, when all it is a temporary stopgap measure. It's not a permanent measure. But the giving of the holy name, which brings them slowly to Krishna, and Krishna leads, as I just said. It leads them to purification, it leads them to love of God, and Krishna will take care of his own. Every father, mother will take care of his own. But what we have done is we have disenfranchised ourselves from our divine creator, or divine source. And therefore Krishna stands aside and he says, okay, you want to run your life without me? Fine, I'm not going to force you to love me. So Krishna doesn't force us, but if we want to love him, he will help us and increase our love for him and give us a lot of inner knowledge, inner guidance, and knowledge that you get, from his books. His books are the books that Prabhupada wrote us. As I get older and as I read them more and more, I find how merciful he has been, how merciful Krishna is, and how telling and significant and how important they are. Every word is so. I didn't feel that way like 20 years ago. I knew they were important. I knew they were good. I know that they had a lot. But as you advance and you get a little more sensitive, you get more feeling, you say, wow, all you keep saying is, wow, this is amazing. Wow, what grace. What mercy. I'm just so fortunate. You're thinking like that, The members of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness invite the Society's members and supporters to dine with them when they hold love feasts in all their branches every Sunday. Many interested people come to honor Prasad, and whenever possible, they invite members of the Society to their homes, and I talked about that, the home programs, and feed them sumptuously with Prasad. In this way, both the members of the Society and the general public are benefited. It's reciprocal. People should give up, people should give up the company of so-called, listen to this, yogis, jnanis, karmis, and philanthropists, because their association can benefit no one. It's a heavy-duty statement, and it's a very bold statement to make, because most people, what we call non-devotees, they would not understand that unless it's fully explained to them, and they have to be a devotee for a while. When you say that the yogis, all these people taking yoga, you know, the millions of people stretching and bending this way and bending that way and doing this and all that, which I taught for 18 years. So Prabhupada was saying, stay away from this guy here. If one really wants to attain the goal of human life, he should associate with devotees of the Krishna conscious movement, because it is, let me just backtrack for just a second. Prabhupada didn't have anything against yoga per se. Right? Tamala Krishna, he made some critical remark about some yogis who are, I think they were on a park or in the beach, and Prabhupada said, what a waste, Tamal Krishna said, what a waste of time. And Prabhupada said, what do you mean a waste of time? There's good exercise. He says, but Prabhupada, you always told us we don't have to do it. No, you don't have to do it, but it's healthful for the body, so you shouldn't criticize it. Of course, if they make this yoga their all in all, it is a big waste of time. And many of them do. But some of them, a few of them, get through the cracks like me. And they find Prabhupada and they become transformed by his grace. If one really wants to attain the goal of human life, he should associate with devotees of the Krishna consciousness movement, because it is the only movement that teaches one how to develop a love of God. Religion is the special function of human society. This doesn't mean that other religions aren't teaching something about love of God. But let me mention, I've done quite a bit of studying of other religions. Generally speaking, and I'm not talking about the monks and the nuns who live in a cloistered area, you know, who are very much into the scriptures and they actually know what devotional love and life is. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the general public. Generally speaking, the kind of sermons that are given on TV, you know, the television, televangelists they call them, and the evangelists, you know, in the churches and the priests, generally what they teach is God has a plan for you. God is going to make you happy. God has got $1 million set aside for you. Isn't that nice? He's got $1 million set aside. You just have to just depend upon God. Just ask and it shall be given to you, and he will give you your $1 million. But you must learn patience. And that's the trick. That's the rub. So a person waits 20 years, 30 years. He's still waiting. Then he dies. He never got the $1 million. So the point they keep talking about, you can have that big dream home. And then they tell you a story about I heard one. Sometimes I tune in and I listen to their rant. This woman, you know, she wanted, her husband died and she wanted to, and she was now alone and she felt so lonely and she was getting poor and she wanted to be in the show business world. So somehow at church, there was some producer, and just got in, somehow they bumped into one another and began talking. And before you knew it, they were dating, and after they were dating, he married her, and he was a big-time producer, and now she got into... So that's the summum bonum of their preaching, that she got wealthy, and she has a big home, and she can tell all her friends, wow, look at me, you know, God did all this for me. Is that all God has to do for you? What's going to happen when you leave this big mansion and you die? Who's going to get it? You think you can take it with you up to the heavenly gates and say, here's my mansion. I want to live in this place. I don't want to leave it. And St. Peter says, we give you a hovel here to live in. So anyway, the important point is that's mainly materialistic. And people fall for that because that's what they want. They want money, they want power, they want beauty. If you pray to the Lord, He will send you to the finest. Woman is not very pretty. She got big bags under her eyes. She's already 55 years old. She got triple chin. The nose is not right. It's got a big, looks like an eagle nose. Kind of crooked, and bad sloping posture. So if you pray to the Lord, He will get you the finest plastic surgeon you can imagine. He will make you look like, you name the actress, you'll become like her. Speaking of that, let me tell you a little story about that. It's very funny. But anyway, that's what you do. And lo and behold, she finds a plastic surgeon, and he makes her look really very, very beautiful. And many men, they want to make her acquaintance. And some of them may be wealthy. And then she tells her story on television. Yes, I was just a poor slob, ugly as can be. And look at me now. Beautiful, gorgeous. Every man just looks at me and just wants to fall at my feet. Now, let me tell you a real story. This is the Barbie doll story. Anyone know the Barbie doll story? Okay. There was this young woman. She was brought up with Barbie dolls. You all know Barbie, the little blonde girl. And it's a doll. And she had a number of Barbie dolls. And she was not ugly, but she was plain. And she always wanted to look like Barbie. That was her goal. That was her desire. That was her dream. That's what she prayed for when she went to the church. You just pray, and you'll look like Barbie. So she's praying and praying and hoping and hoping. And then her father died. And he left her $100,000, maybe $250, not $100, about $200,000. So she said, well, now I have an opportunity. I can go to a plastic surgeon and he can make me look like Barbie. So she went to the plastic. She says, here's who I want to look like. So the surgeon, he worked on her. She went under the knife 64 times. 64 times, and she was the splitting image of Barbie doll. And her motto for all ladies was, there's a Barbie in every lady's life. Can you imagine? This was the summum bonum of her life, that she could look like Barbie. And she did get into social circles, as if that is going to really make you happy. Yeah, she met some guy who had some money. But they think that when you're a millionaire, you don't have problems, you don't have arguments, you have all the money they have. Even if you get a divorce, then what do you do when you're alone? Then you buy 5 dogs. And then the dogs lick your face before, when you go to bed, you got 5 tongues on your nose and on your cheeks, licking you got one licking your feet. It gives you a powerful feeling when a dog is licking your feet. So anyway, that's the thing. This is not religion. And Prabhupada says this is cheating religion. Real religion gets you to the point. Krishna takes care of it. If money is what you need, if you know how to handle it and you know how to use it, as Prabhupada did, He'll get you plenty. And you can distribute millions of books. Let me read on now. This is so fascinating. So Prabhupada says over here, in all parts of the world, however downtrodden human society may be, there is some system of religion. Even tribal aborigines in the jungles also have a system of religion. When a religious system develops and turns into love of God, it is successful. As stated in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam 126, Savai pumsam paro dharmo, if I can find it, yato bhaktir hoksajay, ahaitiki apratihata yayatma suprasidati, which means the supreme occupation, dharma, for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendental Lord. I want to repeat one part. The supreme occupation, the dharma, for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted. Unmotivated means you do the service not with any strings attached. Okay, a lot of people like to, this is also cheating religion. I give you this, Lord, I will give $100 every month to the church, but I want you to give me at least $10,000 every month. It's my deal. Is it a deal? What kind of a religion is that? And if you don't get it, all right, I'll give you $12,000. He tries to up the ante. Still, God doesn't take care. This is cheating religion. So unmotivated means, Lord, I give you this because you deserve it. I give you this because I owe it to you. I give you this because I love you. So please accept it. I expect nothing in return. If you want to give me something in return, I will accept it and utilize it as best as I can in your loving devotional service. If the members of human society actually want peace of mind, tranquility, and friendly relations between men and nations, they must follow the Krishna-conscious system of religion by which they can develop their dormant love for Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As soon as people do so, their minds will immediately be filled with peace and tranquility. Excuse me. Are there any questions on these points so far that I just mentioned? In this No? In this regard, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, that's Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master, warns all devotees engaged in broadcasting the Krishna consciousness movement not to speak to the impersonalist Mayavadis. Don't try to convert them, he's saying. Leave them. If they come to you and they want to become a devotee, you can share. But don't go looking for them. They're very fixed in their madness. Don't shake them out of it. They want to stay in that mad idea that I'm God. I see them with the T-shirts. I am God. I am God. I am God. So, not to speak to the impersonalist Mayavadis who are always determined to oppose such theistic movements. The world is full of Mayavadis and atheists, and the political parties of the world take advantage of Mayavad and other atheistic philosophies to promote materialism. Sometimes they even back a strong party to oppose the Krishna consciousness movement. The Mayavadis and other atheists do not want the Krishna consciousness movement to develop because it educates people in God consciousness and also in a higher morality. The Mayavadis, they believe they're God. Well, if you're God, then you can commit any and all sin. To a person who thinks he's God, there is no sin. God can't sin. You do what you like. There's no four regulative principles. There's no regulative principles because God cannot sin. God can do no wrong. And if I'm God, what's wrong? That can only breed chaos. It can only breed anarchy. It breeds untrustworthiness. Who will believe who? Nobody will believe anybody. Nobody will trust anybody because everybody will be expressing their desire for sense gratification and trying to exploit and take advantage of everybody else. And when that happens, you have a society of animals. And that's why Prabhupada is being so heavy in this particular part. So that our philosophy is that we should become more cultured, more refined, more sensitive. The world is full of Mayavadis and atheists and I already said that, sorry. The Mayavadis and other atheists do not want the Krishna. I already said that, sorry about that. Such is the policy of the atheists. There is no benefit in feeding a snake milk and bananas because the snake will never be satisfied. On the contrary, by taking milk and bananas, the snake simply becomes what? I don't hear. More poisonous, yes. Yes, more poisonous. Kevalam visa vardhanam. If a snake is given milk to drink, its poison simply increases. For a similar reason, we should not disclose our minds to the serpent Mayavadis and Karmis. Such disclosures will never help. It is best to avoid association with them completely and never ask them about anything confidential, because they cannot give good advice. All they will tell you to be, meditate on the light, merge into the light, become the light, come out of the light and do what you like. Anybody taking this down? Okay. Such disclosures will never help. It is best to avoid association with them completely and never ask them about anything confidential, because they cannot give good advice. Nor should we extend invitations to Mayavadis and atheists, nor accept their invitations, for by such intimate intermingling, we may become affected by their atheistic mentality. We sometimes think we're so strong, we're so powerful, we're so insulated, we're such great devotees. Be careful about this. Some of those Mayavadis, did you have your hand up? Just 1 second, I'll take it. Some of those Mayavadis, they know the Bhagavad Gita quite well, and they interpret it according to, their understanding. And they can, if you don't know your Bhagavad Gita, then they may out-argue you and may make you feel so small and so insignificant that you may say, well, maybe this devotional service is just for a bunch of, emotionalists. And the real intellectuals, they go to that. They can convince like that. So we should not be so bold and so foolish as to think that we're so... Prabhupada says, stay away. Don't have anything to do. You don't have to defeat them. If, of course, you are an incarnation of knowledge like the 4 Kumaras, then you can go full out and defeat them, because you have all the... You're fully armed with, the whole Bhagavad Gita, you can quote it, and you can go around them in circles. But that's not for the most of us. Yes, Prabhuji, what did you have in mind?
What about association with parents who are not devotees or who?
Association with what?
Parents. Like
Parents?
Mother and father.
Are we talking about like one's own mother and father? Okay, well... the association has to be on a limited basis, but there are certain things which offspring have in common with the parents. There are certain things which they don't. Parents may want to eat meat, and they may drink, or they may go to Las Vegas and gamble and so forth. So we don't criticize them. We try to find areas of agreement. Things that they like. They like baseball games, so you can talk a little baseball for 10, 15 minutes. So, this guy, a home run, your father is a baseball fan, and he turns it on the style, and he says, wow, look at that. It's going, it's gone, home run. And you clap too, yay, because he's clapping. So he thinks you're one of them, That way he doesn't dislike you, he doesn't feel you're alienated, and when it comes to talking about, he says, he thinks he said, well, why don't you have a piece of steak or a piece of roast beef? He says, well, you just tell him, it gives me indigestion. You don't have to tell him about 4 eggs and all that kind of stuff. It just makes me nauseous. He said, well, maybe you got to go to a doctor. No, not the doctor. When I think of the doctor, I get more nauseous. So there's ways of dealing with these things. You have to be, it's called being a diplomat. Like Ramananda Roy, he was a perfect diplomat. He knew how to get around even Lord Chaitanya to get him to see King Prataparudra, you see. So when you have parents, look for areas of agreement, and try to, on their birthdays, make sure you call them up and send them a birthday card. Don't send it. It doesn't have to be a card with Krishna on it. Don't force them into it. If you know they don't like it, then if they're Catholics or Jesus, send them a card with a cross on it, with Jesus there. If you know that's going to please them, well, then they're going to become very much favorable to you. And when they feel favorable to you, they want to do something for you. And little by little, they will become favorable to what you like, even though they may not join it. But at least they can hear the holy name from you, or hear the singing from you, and not say such a horrible or critical or blasphemous things about it, because after all, you've said so many nice things and done so many nice things, they don't want to hurt your feelings anymore. But if you hurt their feelings, they're just eager and ready to step on your feelings. That's the nature. So we need to be a little bit of a psychologist in dealing with these kind of people. And when the right time comes, they'll say, well, I don't understand this philosophy, and I don't really want to understand it, but all I know is you're a wonderful son, and I love you, and that's enough for me. And then you say to him, well, you're a wonderful father, and that's enough for me. We may have some disagreements, but why even talk about those? Let's talk about the things we love and which bring us together. Who can resist such a philosophy, And that way you stay friendly, and nobody feels hurt or nobody feels pinched or anything like that. I give the same answer. I must have given it thousands of times because fortunately, my mother, she was like a camp follower. Anything I did, she would do. She was like, always. I went to yoga, she did yoga. And she was doing it for years. I became a vegetarian, she became a vegetarian. My poor father, he was a meat eater. So after a while, she couldn't stand. She wouldn't prepare meat anymore. She said to him, I'm sorry. The very idea of contributing to the killing of a cow, which is a nice animal, I can't make that. You have to go out to a restaurant now. She told him like that. And he felt, he was still paying the bills. He was still paying the rent. And he should be getting something from her. So when she began to feel that, she said, well, maybe it's time for us to separate, because you want meat. All your friends are basically atheistic. I have nothing in common with your friends, with those people up at the lake house. I have nothing in common with you anymore. We're not the same people. When we were married, we both liked the same things. I don't like the things you like anymore. I hate them. And by extension, what do you think I think of you? So therefore, anyway, my mother finally, she was, I never told this story. It was decided that they would separate, and my mother would come out to Los Angeles and live here, separated. On the day that she left, when she finally reached Los Angeles, on that day, my father died. That very day. She didn't know it until about 3 days later, and then she had to come back because she was still in his will and all those other kind of things. It's absolutely amazing. She was then free, of course, to marry another man who was a vegetarian, who did have some interest in yoga, and who was definitely very accommodating to her desires, because they had the same. It's amazing how Krishna worked out this whole thing. And he even came, they came to the Sunday feast. And so my mother saw that, and he became, as I said, very favorable. He chanted Hare Krishna to some extent, but he could never really be a devotee. My mother was the devotee. I gave her 8 years of private lessons in Bhagavad Gita. She would come every Friday. So I would teach her so that she would have some background. She could teach her husband then. Because I don't think, he came with her sometimes, but he liked to hear it from her rather than me, because it's his wife, So I think that answers your question, doesn't it? Okay, sure. Any other questions in that? Already? Let me see, 4:30, 8:30. It's over. It's done. Thank you so very much. It was a pleasure. Well, you see how the time went so fast. I can't even believe it. Thank you all very much. I will be speaking tomorrow morning, and I will be giving the Sunday Feast lecture, and that will be my last lecture. I'll be returning to Los Angeles, and I will have all my CDs out again, and all my USBs of my audiobooks. My paper books got sold out. If any of you want to hear all the books in your car, or hear them going to bed, or hear them while you're cooking, please avail yourself. We do have some left over. And so I want to thank you all so much for coming, for giving me the opportunity. It's a precious privilege for me to share this. And I thank Krishna for allowing me to get to know you. And I pray for all of you, that all of you will develop deeper and deeper, greater and greater, higher and higher love for Krishna, because that's really all that counts. Hare Krishna. All glories to Prabhupada. All glories to the Srimad Bhagavatam. All glories to you. Hare Krishna.